Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Warfare Tournament. We just finished up 4 weeks of the greatest theme songs. Hopefully you join us for that. But we are going to do one single tournament tonight, and that is going to be the greatest heel turns. Now, if you are a fan of wrestling history, you're going to get a lot of it going on in this episode. There's 16 different heel turns. We tried to get through some different eras. You're going to notice a big theme in here, Hulk Hogan. But before we hit that, we're going to bring in our guest today. And we start off with Chris Maloney from CWN. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. I am multitasking like crazy today, but there's not enough hours in the day I'm learning, but I'm good. Between the CWN and the hockey draft tonight and Fantasy Warfare again, which I'm happy to be back on, and then some other projects going on. Yes, it's like I said, not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, well, thank you for making time for this. Steven's a little tied up still with all the COVID regulations and different things with dining. So who knows? I know he's off for at least 2 weeks on this. And that brings us to Niagara Falls and Chris Jones. How are you, Jonesy?
I'm doing fantastic, and I will do a Brady Bunch look at both of you.
And that's not supposed to be showing yet. Okay, so we are, as I said, going to do the greatest heel turns. As always, I have a lovely video to illustrate what we're going to be doing, and then Jonesy's going to break down the bracket before we jump right into it. So we'll be back in just about a minute.
Time to get it on. Come together for the rising. All for one for all. Like the sun, we will be shining. Standing tall, never fall. Stare into the eyes of danger. Lay to waste all the fears. Let them hear us say it louder. My blood, my sweat, your tears.
So that is our video, and there's Jonesy. So, Chris, can you run down what we are going to discuss tonight? Does that bring up the bracket?
I absolutely will. All right, well, in the first bracket, we got Jake double crosses the Warrior with special guest Undertaker in there. We got Hogan is the third guy joining the NWO. Then we have Andre joins Heenan on Piper's Pit, and that one's going up against Owens betrays Sammy. We got Orndorff turns on Hogan versus the Mega Powers Explode. Of course, that will be one of the hot topics. We got Sergeant Slaughter turn on USA, one of my faves, going against Sid turns on Hogan. And then we got Seth turning on Seth turning on the Shield versus Owen turns on Brett. And then we got Beefcake Butcher's friend versus HBK turns on Janetti. And then rounding them out is Triple H destroys HBK, taking on Christian turns on Edge with some great chair shots. And we got Ciampa turns on Gargano, going against Stephanie forsakes her father. I would imagine was that last word. I didn't get that last word.
Daddy.
Oh, her daddy. There you go.
Yeah, I only have so much room in the brackets. So, Chris Maloney, what do you think of this bracket and anything that you see as being a tough call?
As far as being a tough call goes, I I'm going to say Orndorff and Hogan in the Mega Powers for sure, because the fact is, I mean, I remember those like they're yesterday. Some of them are pretty easy picks for me, but one of the other ones as well, Triple H and HBK against Christian and turning on Edge. So that's going to be a toughie as well.
Yeah, it should be a good bracket to talk history with. Jonesy, your thoughts? I know we talked a slight bit before we started recording, but any thoughts before we dive in?
For me, it's Hogan is the third guy, Andre, and I think the Mega Powers. That's the three that are going to be the tough ones.
Okay, well, I have a little bit different thought on that, and hopefully
You'd be
might
wrong.
get a chance to do that with the finals. What I see, I was talking with Nathan at work this morning and trying to reason out where certain things could be and maybe a surprise here or there. But we're diving in with our first matchup. Don't Trust the Snake taking on Hogan as third man. In 1991, Jake the Snake Roberts was still basically a fan favorite, and he started trying to show Ultimate Warrior this dark side of things and how to basically defeat the dark side and Undertaker and everything, and trying to teach him the way. And there was a couple of vignettes before the one that we have in the playlist that people can watch and follow along with what we end up looking at. But he buried Warrior alive and stuff like that. And in this case, the official heel turn for Jake Roberts came when he led the Warrior down to a snake pit and locked him into a basically a cellar. And there was a King Cobra there. And he kept on just taunting Warrior and trying to motivate him, it seemed like, to embrace the dark side. And the Cobra ended up biting him. And Warrior was like poisoned from the venom of this King Cobra. And he's over dramatic with this. He's got these bicycle shorts on, or basketball shorts on with his tassels on. It just looks totally ridiculous being in this cellar. And he finally busts through the door. And I think just before he busts through the door, you see Jake look over and says something about, the man in black, and welcomes him. And that's when Warrior busts through the door and he's crawling all over the place. And next thing you know, you hear the gong and you see the black boots and Warrior's struggling. And there is Undertaker with Paul Bearer laughing about it. And Jake ends it basically saying, "Don't trust the snake." And so that was his heel turn. He had a not really memorable feud with Warrior, but later on had a feud with Undertaker. Ended up leaving and going to WCW, Halloween Havoc. Did the spin the wheel, make the deal match with Sting. But that moment with Warrior was his heel turn. He's going against Hulk Hogan being the third guy. Now, Hogan had left WWE in 93, showed up in WCW in 94, and did the whole stuff, red, white, and blue, waving the flag, went against Dungeon of Doom and really hokey crap storylines. Even had what's going to come up later on, Beefcake turn on him, part of that. And all of a sudden in 96, Hall and Nash show up and they are basically playing off their Razor Ramon and Diesel characters. And they said, they're here to take over and that there's a third guy. Bash at the Beach, it happens in July. It's just Hall and Nash taking on Savage, Sting, and Luger, and the third guy had not shown up. And next thing you know, Hogan finally appears, and he's coming down to save the day. The fans are going wild, and unfortunately, Bobby Heenan, I don't think he knew, but gave it away when Tony Schiavone and Dusty Rhodes are all happy that Hogan's coming to save the day, because I think Luger had gotten taken out earlier in the match. And next thing you know, you hear Bobby Heenan say, "But whose side is he on?" And they're doubting that's happening. Hogan gets in, pushes Randy Anderson away, looks around, and then leg drops Savage, shows his true colors. Schiavone says he might be wearing red, but he's yellow as well. They do the fake pin. Gene Okerlund gets in there, interviews Hogan, says that they've been up and down the road together, and he can't believe that he would sell himself out to Hall and Nash. And Hogan's just like, these people can shut up if they want to hear what I have to say. These guys came from North. Who knows the North better than this guy right here, meaning him? And he kept on saying the new organization of wrestling instead of the new world order. But that eventually the next day on Nitro got situated. But they had so much garbage being thrown at him, and just that moment for Hogan turning heel, nobody expected it after all those years of Hulkamania, even though he had been a heel in WWE beforehand, or WWF with Vince Sr. So given the options between these two, as much as I like the drama of Jake Roberts, that moment in Hulkamania turning and becoming the leader of the NWO gets my vote. Chris Maloney.
Did you breathe?
How do you even compare this? I mean, this goes back to the days I remember when I was doing Fantasy Warfare, and you'd have like Ric Flair in a certain bracket. This here is the Ric Flair, although it's Hulk Hogan. You've got Jake and the Ultimate Warrior, which was classic. I mean, you think of the stuff the Ultimate Warrior had to put up with back in the day. I mean, the whole Papa Shango aspect. It's coincidence that it was the Undertaker that got Jake the Snake Roberts to turn heel, but it was also Jake the Snake Roberts who ended up getting the Undertaker to turn face, which was kind of ironic right there. But I mean, for WWE at that time, I mean, it was classic television for them. You know, the more weirder it got, the better. But then you can't compare it. It's Hulk Hogan and the new world order, the NWO, the formation of it, the whole year of Scott Hall, Kevin Nash jumping to WCW, pretending that they're invading, and then all of a sudden the gimmick of the match itself and who's the third man, and then they come out united. Sting, Randy Macho Man Savage, Lex Luger, all with the face paint on, and then Hogan comes out, that leg drop that's iconic, and he hits the Macho Man with it, of course. Mean Gene's in the ring, like you had said, Sean, garbage all over the place. I mean, it's one of those iconic moments in wrestling, top 5 for sure. So I got to say, hands down, yeah, Hulk Hogan's the third guy for the NWO. So it's 2-0 right there.
Well, I gotta agree. Hogan NWO is the best one. I thought the Hogan one, the things I didn't, you would have thought that the crowd would have verbalized more. They sure did as far as throw garbage, but the booing and all that, it wasn't like I've heard much better booing. So it surprises me watching it that there didn't seem to be that, sudden rain of boos that came down. It's more silent. Maybe it was shock, but the Jake one, it actually reminds me of like watching a WCW vignette, except it's much better done. The production is actually much better. Yeah, Hogan is the third guy for me.
So that brings us on to our second matchup. Chris Maloney. We have Andre the Giant joins the Heenan family, taking on A Friendship Betrayed, Sammy and Kevin Owens.
So this is interesting because when you start going through this, you start reading facts that you had forgotten about. You know that Kevin Owens' match at Evolution was with CJ Parker. And to those who can't understand or know who CJ Parker is, he's the one and only Juice Robinson now. So there's a little bit of history for you. That's how long ago this was. But I'm starting with this one first because of the fact the other one is hands down the winner for me. But you've got Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn. I mean, the best of friends, but also the best of enemies as well. And this goes all the way back to the ROH days, And saying that, Kevin Owens, you can never trust the guy. Sami Zayn was always that kind of good friend to him. But the fact is, back in the day, Sami Zayn was, NXT champion. And then basically Kevin Owens comes down to the ring, congratulates his old friend before he power bombs him onto the ring apron, and the rest is history. So it's tough to ever trust Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. It's like I said, the best of friends and the best of enemies as well. Now, in saying that, you've got the best of enemies that turned into the best of friends that turned into the best of enemies again. I'm talking Andre the Giant and Bobby the Brain Heenan. Here you got two guys that absolutely hate each other. You go to WrestleMania 1, the Body Slam challenge with Big John Studd. And who's the guy who's coming into the ring to steal the money from Andre the Giant? Bobby the Brain Heenan. It was always one of those things. It's like the weasel, the Achilles heel, so to speak, to Andre the Giant was always Bobby the Brain Heenan. Well, next thing you know, here's a guy, and they play it off with Jack Tunney and Jesse the Body Ventura and Roddy Piper with regards to he never getting a championship match. The 15 years he's undefeated, this and that, but Hulk Hogan's never, asked him if he wants a championship match. Lead into WrestleMania 3, the history that goes down. Andre the Giant ends up winning the tag team championships with Haku. I had no idea how tough he was until you kind of get older in life and hear some of the Ming stories and the Haku stories. And then next thing you know, they end up losing the tag team titles. WrestleMania 6, Skydome, and Andre's the one who's getting chewed out and blamed by Bobby the Brain Heenan. And Andre's like sitting there in the corner, and he's taking it like a humble giant until Bobby Heenan slaps him. And then that's the end for Bobby Heenan. So to me, it's iconic for a lot of reasons because of the fact it's Andre the Giant and Bobby Heenan, in the history that they've had. But coming to think about it, and I think I've actually changed my own mind. So I was originally going to go with Bobby Heenan and Andre the Giant. But when I'm going back in history and realizing all the stuff that had happened before that, and then obviously the career that Andre the Giant didn't have post WrestleMania 6, I've got to go Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, simply because of the fact the ROH days, into the NXT days, into the WWE days, into what could potentially happen. And, with the draft coming up for WWE, and I'm saying this, fact is we could see those two guys feuding over the IC championship over there on SmackDown. So I just kind of changed my mind, like I said, in the midst of this, but I got to go Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. So Kevin Owens turning on Sami Zayn in this one is my win, my pick.
So that leads us to Jonesy.
Well, I think you're on freaking crack. Andre the Giant, the Piper's Pit, it is a classic. You can't beat it. I'm sorry, you can't beat that one. So for the rest of this thing, I'm going to be very bitter. But that one to me is just, and you mentioned how with Heenan and everything. I mean, you gave me a great swerve. I thought you were voting for that. Everything was going to be smooth sailing. But you know what? The fact that the Piper was also a heel for years to Hogan, and he's the one that's interviewing and watching this all go down and is being concerned to Hogan and what he says, and the fact that he didn't even mean to cut him, but he did. And Piper did. You're bleeding, man. You're bleeding. It was wonderfully done. I really wish they'd stop doing these in-ring interview freaking things when it's supposed to be a show. Do a set. It's better. So for me, I'm ignoring the Owen Sammy thing. I mean, yes, it's a good heel turn, but it ain't no history making one. It had great timing, and the move on the apron is fantastic, but the history of Hogan and Andre is so much thicker, especially where it happened in WWF. People knew about their backstory without any internet. The only reason why Owens and Sammy is even on the list is because people could Google it. So there you go. Well, mine's Andre.
So I get to be the tiebreaker on here. Well, as much as the whole stuff with Piper's Pit, and I do agree that Piper's Pit and those sort of talk shows,
It's the
Brother Love
lead
shows,
into WrestleMania
all that
3, the
need to
biggest
come
WrestleMania.
back.
How can you even go on the other one? Anyways, I'm done.
It needs to come back, and they have that staging area at the well, I think it's at the Amway Center at the Thunderdome. They could easily do something like that, and especially with the way wrestling's produced today. But Piper's Pit is definitely iconic. I didn't overly like the ending with Piper just going, "You're bleeding, man. You're bleeding." It's like, yeah, okay, he's bleeding. What's your point? Everything was to the point
Blood. He
with
drew first blood. That's what they were referring to.
because of an
Like
accident when
if you would
Andre
have taken
ripped
some
the
movie stuff,
chain.
you would know. You take some movie classes. Oh, I'm sorry. Continue. Okay, I'm gonna stop now because I'm just doing the Donald Trump.
Basically. But yeah, of course, Andre turning on Hogan is epic. It led to 93,173 in the Silver Dome in Detroit. Biggest WrestleMania, Mania 3, helped WWE break out. But after that, it was kind of downhill, unfortunately, because of Andre's health. I had suggested Owens and Zayn be in here because of the history that they have with each other. Owens had debuted against CJ Parker earlier in the night, and the vignettes leading him to NXT, people were hyped about Kevin Steen coming, now Kevin Owens, and they knew the history between Steen and El Generico. And with Sami Zayn being in the main event, winning the title from Adrian Neville, the first person to come out is his best friend. Everybody's happy for him. You see this going on, and then they're the last two to leave. And just when you think that they're going to celebrate together, he gets backstabbed, gets clotheslined, powerbombed, and yelled at, "Do not trust Kevin Owens." And it was a shocking moment that led to really great matches in NXT. The consequent matches that happened after Hogan and Andre at WrestleMania 3 just weren't that great because of Andre's unfortunate health issues. So just the impact of the heel turn, I was going with Owens and Zayn. I was actually surprised that Maloney went with that too. But
that's embarrassing.
shocking.
I can't believe that Andre, that storyline, you're saying that the Sammy and Owens storyline had more impact? Like, give me a break. I mean, I it's your opinions, but that. Oh man, this is like someone going to a restaurant and one guy going, you know what, this is the best damn meal, and the other two guys going, it's okay.
Well, I hope you can refocus for matchup number 3.
So hold on,
Because
Shawn.
matchup
That's your official pick.
Yes.
So there was, I'll say, there's about a tenth of me that went with Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens simply because of the fact I thought you guys would be all over Hogan Andre.
No, I was actually picking Zayn.
No, I believe you,
Owens.
but you're the bad guy now. I thought I was going to get outvoted when I asked how this votes is, who is starting out. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. Well, Orndorff backstabs Hogan, another person to take out Hogan, along with the Macho Man Randy Savage, who took out Hogan. Is there a problem here with Hogan and friends? Jonesy.
Okay, so just go back for 2 seconds here, and then Maloney can answer this. When it comes around to him, I just want to hear him say that, yeah, I should have picked Andre and Heenan because that is the better one, because then I'll be happy. But anyways, Orndorff turns on Hogan. Honestly, I don't remember a lot of this because I wasn't watching a lot of wrestling at that time. Mainly renting it and that, not on TV. But he had enough of Hogan shit. And a lot of people that have turned on Hogan, it was a similar storyline where I'll team up with you, even though I'm a little reluctant, and then they end up backstabbing him. I mean, God, how many people have done that to friggin' Hogan? Hogan, if you have someone that's going to team up with you, don't do it because they're going to turn on you, man. It happens all the time. So the Mega Powers one, that one I'm much more familiar with, of course. I remember the Saturday night main event. I was watching it while I was helping my father wallpaper my grandmother's house, and
It was actually a Friday night.
yeah, and I think they were my grandmother was in Vegas or whatever, and went over there and did that, and she had that channel, so woo, got to watch that, and it was great. But yeah, they were the top two guys at the time. They had fought before, but not in a huge feud, at least not a major one. And then once they did become friends and helped at WrestleMania 4, and then Randy rode this big wave, and then for some reason Randy got all mad, and that would be, of course, because of Elizabeth. This just enraged jealousy he had. Though I don't know, the way they pulled it off when she got knocked down and all that, I felt it. I don't know. There was something in there that it's like, well, Randy, if you cared so much, why didn't you jump out or try something? He should have at least been held back by the Twin Towers. And maybe that tells more about his character, that he didn't really give a shit. He only cared about Elizabeth for him, but not Elizabeth's actual health. That's one of the times where I think Hogan did get kind of boned on that, because he did come back, and then Randy did one of the best friggin', slaps him, or I think it was slap, and then he does the quick jump over the top rope, and then fantastic. One of the best turns, because that whole thing was like a good half an hour from start to finish, because then after the match was the full heel turn. And then, of course, having Beefcake come in, because, Beefcake has to be on TV when Hogan's on TV. So, but for me, it's the Mega Powers Explode. The Orndorff one, I know it was big, but to me, it wasn't as big as what the Mega Powers did. So I'm jumping on the Mega Powers bandwagon, and I'm going with that one.
Yeah, when it comes to this matchup, as much as I guess their friendship between Hogan and Orndorff was a big thing at that time, and they were feuding against the Heenan family with John Studd and Bundy, and then everything that happened during that matchup where Orndorff ended up getting hit, it looked a lot like what would happen a couple of years later when Rick Martel turned on Tito Santana, because Hogan accidentally hits Orndorff, and Orndorff then takes his time to get up, and the match gets called, and Orndorff gets rid of the heels, but then turns heel himself and takes out Hogan. That made it for a huge feud between them. It even went to Exhibition Stadium in Toronto and main evented the big event that happened there. I believe that was in '86. But we're talking about the Mega Powers. They had the huge build-up, 18 months, I would say, from the time that Elizabeth got Hogan to help Savage when he was being attacked by Honky Tonk Man and the Hart Foundation, to the helping win the title at WrestleMania 4, the Mega Powers versus Mega Bucks at SummerSlam, them teaming together and forming, getting three other guys to do the Survivor Series, the clash at the Royal Rumble where Elizabeth had to calm things down, only to explode a couple weeks later. They planned everything out, and if you saw the video leading up to WrestleMania 5, they showed where they had sown those seeds, and having Savage give Hogan the cross eyes of, oh, what are you doing, brother? So that whole storyline build up to see what happened there. Thankfully, through some creative editing, the original broadcast of that did not make it up there, but there is out there because Dick Ebersol was directing that thing. And when they came back from commercial, Hogan actually was like, are we live? Are we going? and you could see that on the original broadcast, and then Savage and him get into it type deal. But yeah,
I don't remember that.
That was only Elizabeth's, I think, second bump that she ever took in the world of wrestling. I don't think she took really anything else other than that, because she got thrown to the ground by Honky Tonk Man and then wiped out by Randy. So those moments made it huge whenever Elizabeth was in peril. And then for Savage to be enraged with jealousy, it's got to be the Mega Powers and Savage turning heel. Is it a clean sweep, Chris Maloney?
Sorry, I was motioning to my wife just for a sec.
No,
it's not a clean sweep. So I tell you this. So it's one of the toughest, like I said in the beginning of the show, as far as who to go with. But the thing is, I've never, and Shawn, you're going to hate this, I have never been a fan of Randy Macho Man Savage. I appreciate everything he's done for the business and the matches that he's had, and this and that. But the fact is, when it comes down to it, when I think of me being a wrestling fan and those moments and those feuds that really meant something to me, Hogan versus Orndorff was one of them. And I remember being in Connecticut for the summer as it was taking place, and there was so much drama to it. There was the Orndorff appearing on Adrian Adonis's flower shop, and Adrian being behind him and saying, "Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful," and just chanting that, you know what I mean? Well, Jimmy Hart's there, and all of a sudden it was and when you look back, it was kind of a weak storyline. When you look at that match against Studd and Bundy, it's one big simple elbow, and Orndorff selling it like, he just, like he just got the world handed to him on a silver platter, and then somebody took it away. And it was a bad analogy, but the fact is, Orndorff played it up back in the 80s, and the fact is, came into the ring, makes the save for Hogan, and then beats him up himself. You know what I mean? But you had talked about the big event here at CNA in Toronto that was huge. To me, it was the steel cage match that had taken place between Hogan and Orndorff on Saturday Night's Main Event, and it's for the championship. And both guys are dropping down on the opposite sides of the ring, and they had showed that replay back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And to me, WrestleMania 1 wasn't the reason Orndorff to me stood out as a WWE wrestler. It was because of that moment with Hulk Hogan. And it's funny, we can continually probably mention Hulk Hogan's name in every single, graph, so to speak, that we do, every single match that we do. But this one to me, I would have went the opposite way. I am going the opposite way. So it is a 2-1 vote, not a clean sweep. But I am going Hogan and Orndorff. Not to say that the buildup for the Mega Powers exploding wasn't substantial. Because the fact is, they had so many tie-ins to when they actually did explode. So many looks by Savage all the way back to SummerSlam, you know what I mean? And Hogan having Elizabeth up in the air and Savage giving him that glare, So, but I don't know. It was a toughie, but I got to go Hogan Orndorff.
Yeah, Orndorff sold that little elbow like he got waffled with a steel chair. And it was just a little much, and like I said, it looked a lot like
Hogan didn't do a good job of delivering that stick.
What was that, Jonesy?
I think we're on a little bit of a 1 or 2 second delay. I said I forget what I said, but Hogan he didn't deliver that elbow very well. Like you see him, like you can tell he's like trying
to telegraph it.
But I am glad that Mega Powers won that one, because now we hurt Maloney on that one. Now which one can we hurt you on, Shawn?
We'll see what happens.
I think I already heard his feelings talking about Savage there. It's not the first fantasy warfare thing I've put down Savage, is it?
No, it's not. But we're moving on to match number 4, where the turncoat, Sergeant Slaughter, returns to WWE after being G.I. Joe and working for the AWA, left Vern Gagne high and dry. He was leading his old Team Challenge Series team, and that was floundering really bad, and came back as a heel. Did not like how soft America had been, embracing people like Nikolai Volkov, and they started feuding a bit there. And Slaughter was getting the best of everything at that point, but he was definitely telling people that America has gone soft. He gave Brother Love a Medal of Honor on a Brother Love show. I believe it was at SummerSlam, as well, and just to show how much of a heel he was going to be. And then the invading of Iraq happened, and Saddam Hussein, and all of a sudden, Slaughter started embracing that because of how brutal Iraq was and how much they were such a powerful thing, and he was honoring them and started wearing curled-toed boots and everything that entails, like Iron Sheik. He brought in Adnan, who he was feuding with in the AWA, but they made him General Adnan and was representing Iraq. They started just putting down America. He was asked to burn the American flag, but instead he decided to just burn a Hogan shirt. He was just getting so much heat that they had to actually get him bodyguards and wear bulletproof vests just to leave his house on a regular basis outside of the wrestling world. His family was in danger, but they never did move or anything like that. As things just kept on escalating in the real world, WWE kept on riding that one, got the title over to Slaughter, which eventually then he lost to Hogan at WrestleMania 7 in the Battle of Iraq versus US. And of course, the red, white, and blue has to win in that regards. And then all of a sudden, Slaughter wanted his country back after the 3-on-2 match at SummerSlam as well. But having a guy like Sergeant Slaughter, who was America's freedom fighter, G.I. Joe even made him part of their cartoon, made him action figures and stuff like that. This is the ultimate slap in the face to all that, where he turns heel. And then you're going against Sid Justice turning on Hogan. Sid had been out for a bit. He returned to the Royal Rumble in '92 with a shot at being the WWF champion. He came out number 29 at the Royal Rumble. The final four involved Savage, Hogan, Flair, and himself. He got rid of Savage. He got rid of Hogan. Hogan was a spoiled little brat with being eliminated. So instead of just being a man and going, oh, yeah, you got me, go get the title, and beat Ric Flair, who Hogan supposedly hated, he actually aided Flair in getting Sid out by grabbing his arm. Flair took advantage and tossed him over the side. Then when it came time to announce who was going to challenge Rick for the title at WrestleMania, Sid thought he was going to be the guy, stood up before Jack Tunney made the announcement. It looked like a fool because it was announced as Hogan. He made disparaging remarks about Hogan, but then apologized for it. Hogan accepted it. They ended up teaming on Saturday night's main event, or which probably was a Friday as well because it's February, and setting up Hogan's match. They went against Flair and Undertaker, double teaming and everything going on. And then Hogan started posing, and Sid just like, who the hell are you type deal, and just mocking him. Finally, Hogan made the attempt at a hot tag, and Sid was encouraging him to come on over, I got you, and then jumped down. Walked away. Beefcake's pleading with him, what are you doing? You're leaving Hogan. He didn't care. He was going to hit Beefcake, and Vince is like all worried that Beefcake was going to lose his face over the whole thing, but Hogan ended up prevailing, go figure. And later on, Sid continued with the fact that he hates Hogan, wanted a match. They ditched the Hogan-Flair match at WrestleMania and made it Sid Hogan. And he started putting people on stretchers. That whole turn took a little bit of time, but it established him back almost as the Sid Vicious character that people knew him from in the WCW and NWA. Given the magnitude between these two turns, Slaughter was real life in a way, with the fact that they had to protect him as much as they did. It got a ton of heat because of real life situations, and I'm going to go with Slaughter to pick up the victory. Chris.
You know what's interesting about this is not only the politics that are behind this, but the actual that you've got these two turns in the same bracket, because the one guy that is a big part of this is the Ultimate Warrior. He's kind of the reason the whole Sid Justice thing may have taken off in the WWE, but he's also the reason why Hulk Hogan got saved at WrestleMania 8. So, but you're talking about, and 7, of course, Slaughter took the title off Warrior to set up that match at, WrestleMania 7. So, anyways, but you talk about the feuds and the turns themselves, so to speak. Slaughter turning on USA, it was just timing. It's they had nothing else really planned. I mean, they had the Kuwait War taking place. It's like Hulk Hogan turning the NWO. That's how big it was back then. That's how big it should be remembered back then, especially considering the fact that you had mentioned this, the whole G.I. Joe character as far as Sergeant Slaughter goes, the All-American Hero. How all of a sudden you've got, a guy he was feuding with in the AWA, and then the Iron Sheik, who I don't think at all they made reference to the Iron Sheik. I think at one point, one of the commentators, might have been Bobby Heenan, was like, hey, that guy kind of looks familiar. I wonder if he's won any championships or something like that. I think he had said on TV, but never referenced at all the Iron Sheik name. It was always Colonel Mustafa, you know what I mean? And then General Adnan, of course. Going into WrestleMania 7, like I said, a lot of politics behind it. But going up against Sid Justice, who, if you any way at all have watched WCW or the NWA before that, you could never trust Sid Justice, Sid Vicious. So leading into this and the way he had betrayed Hulk Hogan, it's once again Hulk Hogan getting betrayed. Sergeant Slaughter, the USA thing, not necessarily betraying Hulk Hogan. He did betray Hulk Hogan's country. But when it comes right down to it, I think bigger moment-wise, it's got to be Slaughter, turning his back on the USA. Not saying I'm going to make a prediction here and saying that Sergeant Slaughter turning back to face is probably not going to be part of the next tournament. That's fantasy warfare based, but him turning his back on the USA, definitely takes it for me.
Jonesy, is this a sweep?
It is a sweep, though I originally had Sid turns on Hogan, but then I was thinking more about it. The Slaughter one I really do like. I think the Sid one got more attention, but the Slaughter one, he did such a great job of being a bad guy. His voice got very annoying after a while, especially when he did those 5-10 minute interviews of just screaming. It's like, man, how do you keep that up for 10 minutes? But yeah, it's the Slaughter one I really like. The Sid one, well, fuck Hogan. Like, I'm sorry. Hogan's the one that turned on Sid, man. Like, that's how good Hogan's character was and how much people loved him. He could cheat. He cheated in, like, almost every single match. He did, like, thumb gouges and like, the Sid one really bugged me because it's like, you know what? Sid could actually be really big here, but it's going to be all about Hogan, and that's exactly what it was about. And their match at WrestleMania 8 is a piece of crap. So for me, it's
Papa missed his cue as well.
He sure
which
did.
I don't understand why he should have been involved either way. But
the best part about WrestleMania 8, when the Ultimate Warrior comes down, listen to Bobby Heenan's call on that. I mean, it was the end of the night after a 3-hour show, but Bobby Heenan, it cracks me up even to this day. Listen to him scream the Ultimate Warrior.
Okay, so that brings us to match number 5. Chris Maloney, we have Seth Rollins turns on the Shield, and Owen turns on his brother Brett.
So this is tough as well, but I've got to go backstory with Owen versus Brett. That is my pick. I will tell you why, and I'll give you guys some history on both of these as well for all the viewers. But when it comes down to it, as Owen Hart, Bret the Hitman Hart, they always kept saying to the fans, to the WWF staff back in the days, like, hey, we're brothers. We're never going to fight. We're never going to fight. We're never going to fight. You'll never see us face each other in the ring. Well, problem was, Owen had been the Blue Blazer at one point in time. And then all of a sudden he leaves. I think he ends up in WCW at one point back in Stampede Wrestling, and then comes back as Owen Hart to eventually become the King of Hearts and the guy that everybody loves. The fact is, when it comes down to it, he was always in Bret's shadow. You know what I mean? He was never going to amount to be as big as Bret Hart. So basically 1994 happens, the Royal Rumble happens. It's Owen Hart and Bret the Hitman Hart. And then basically, I think it was if I remember correctly, tag team championship match against the Quebecers. I think that was what was on the line for them, and Owen's getting PO'd at Bret because the fact is he's watching his brother fail in this match, and Owen's temper got the better of him. And I'll never forget Owen just coming up and then basically kicking the legs out of Bret, cutting that promo, saying it feels so good to finally come out of his shell. And 1994, which just happened to be the same year as WrestleMania 10. So go and Google that there, folks. But that led into that match there. When you talk about Seth Rollins, the moment itself was just as big, but where the character went past that, Owen versus Bret was one big whole kind of Canadian wholesome thing that kind of went sour. You know what I mean? There was no really backstory to it. It's brother versus brother. Obviously, the Bulldog gets involved, the Anvil gets involved, SummerSlam. But with Seth Rollins, it was the Shield. He had his two brothers there. But where it went, Seth Rollins just wasn't like, hey, I need to go on my own. I need to come out of somebody's shell. I need to, come out of somebody's shadow, so to speak. Basically, it come down to like, hey, I'm sick and tired of you guys. I need to do something on my own. I need to win the world title on my own. The Authority is right here, and that being Triple H and Stephanie, and I think Corporate Kane back then as well. And then we see Seth Rollins become basically the golden boy for the Authority. So he didn't do it on his own. It didn't really lead up to memorable matches for me. I think he feuded with Ambrose, but it really doesn't stand out like in my memory as far as without me having to Google it. But Bret versus Owen, and I guess, maybe just the age I was at, being part of that, watching that happen, seeing Owen beat up on Bret at WrestleMania 10, and then all of a sudden seeing Owen become King of the Ring, seeing Owen fight Bret in the steel cage. Without that moment at the Royal Rumble, we would have never seen those matches take place. So WrestleMania 10, SummerSlam 94, absolute amazing moments. And then the feud through the mid to late 90s, you know what I mean? Where all of a sudden they were feuding with Shawn Michaels and the Hart Foundation emerged. So it's so much history there, but it's, I got to say, as a Canadian boy, I got to go Bret versus Owen.
Jonesy.
The Seth one turning on the Shield, personally, I didn't really care about that one. I think the beatdown with the chairs was good, but not enough people really cared about it. When you're watching that, you watch that clip, the fans, there's not much reaction. Again, it's kind of you're expecting big, huge boos in that, but the heat wasn't there, at least as far as I remember it. And what the hell does those flak jackets do anyways? Like, he took both guys out with one hit with a chair, both on the flak jackets. Like, well, why are you wearing those if it's not going to, like, that's one thing that ticks me off when they do storylines that lead to a big moment and then they screw it up. It doesn't look good. That didn't look very good, how he first knocked them both down. It needed to be something a lot bigger. The Owen turns on Bret, that one was a slow burn. Survivor Series, and then it moved on, and the Owen one was probably one of the ones where it really helped the character, really helped Owen completely. Yes, he's gonna still be Bret's brother, but he can hold his own now. So, and it's ironic that the blue blazer is what killed him. It really is. So for me, though, it's Owen turning on Bret.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a clean sweep. Going back to the Shield issue, I think the shocking part of it was the fact that they came in so strong together, were so dominant as heels, then they became faces, and were still very dominant. And just the night before, they had taken out Evolution, and that's why they were basically in the ring celebrating. And next thing you know, Triple H and Orton are coming down saying, well, there's always plan B. And so somehow between the pay-per-view the night before and Raw, they got into Seth's ear about that, and that's where he made the turn. And so that's where the shock was supposed to be. But yeah, when you look at the whole family thing, you never thought that Vince would ever book a brothers like family member versus family member type deal. Was never intended to really get over. Nobody thought. Brett convinced him otherwise, but Owen was there, sort of a little bit of collateral damage in Brett's feud with Jerry Lawler in '93, which led to that Survivor Series where Owen was the only one that was eliminated. He had the jealousy type deal, and then they made up over Christmas time, and they had those vignettes to say that they're happy and family and back together, even though the week before Vince had Owen there and he was insulting his brother. But things made up, and then they decided to team up to go for the tag team titles, and Brett was selfish and wouldn't tag out, and everything led up perfectly and continued for a long while, because you even have Owen convincing Helen to throw in the towel for his brother in the match with Bob Backlund, and Helen always thought that there was something just wrong with Owen. Maybe it was malaria or something that was making Owen the way he was, being the way he was. But then the reuniting of the family, where Brett and Owen and Davey are there, and Owen's crying, just from start to finish, that whole story involving the family was really well. You cannot deny how that impact happened. And as Jonesy said, it was a slow burn, and then it just was awesome. And that opening match at WrestleMania 10 between the brothers, and Owen picked up the victory, made it hard for all the other matches that had to follow that opening match to even be good. I think the closest thing that got consideration was the ladder match with Shawn and Razor, but everybody else was struggling because of what happened with Owen and Brett. And then they even finished off the night with Brett winning the title, being lifted onto his shoulders of everybody to celebrate, and Owen came out and just to stare his brother down at the end. So that whole turn is amazing. And so, yeah, clean sweep, I believe, on that one. And that brings us to our next matchup. The barber becomes the butcher. Beefcake turns on Hogan. And Marty Jannetty runs for his life as Shawn drops some dead weight. Jonesy, you're on mute.
There you go. Sorry about that.
There we go.
Yeah, so the beefcake one, I think it would have been better if it was done somewhere else. The WCW was just too hokey, and the fact that they were just imitating real life, but it was good. It was entertaining as shit in WCW. It just, it seemed more cartoony. I think it would have been better in WWE, that turn. But yeah, that one played out throughout pretty much that whole pay-per-view when Hogan comes out and takes out the knee. So it was a long storyline in one show, how everything kind of went down. So and then HBK turning on Jannetty. You know what? Marty deserved it. That he lost his balance, and Shawn, you can tell that he tried to. He wasn't just holding by the face because he was an ass. He was trying to help him. And anytime I watch that, though, does anyone else go, "Holy shit, that glass"? I mean, if it broke, chunk right into Jannetty, like it. I'm surprised someone hasn't edited that and have that happen, because that'd be easy to do with today's technology. The Jannetty one to me, though, just sticks out more than the beefcake one, because again, especially for a WWE fan, when you've seen all these WWF guys being in WCW, and it wasn't as powerful. It was Dungeon of Doomy. It was cheap TV, where WWE did more classy. It looked good. They had the sets. It just was nicer. So for me, that one it's an easy one. It's HBK.
Yeah, WCW had, unfortunately, I'd hate to say a classic formula for how they ended up turning people or revealing things, because there was either somebody dressed all in black with a mask, because they did it with Ric Flair as a Black Scorpion, but I think it was last minute put as Ric Flair because it was random people for the longest time, and Ole Anderson, once again, doing a voice like he did for Shockmaster. But they either put somebody in a mask and all black or whatever, or they put them in a box and who's in the box type deal. And it was kind of just, it could have been anybody. There was a couple times that happened before that reveal. I believe that was at Halloween Havoc, but it happened at a Clash of Champions and stuff like that. And for it to be Beefcake, it was just like, oh, okay. If it hadn't been for Kevin Sullivan and Avalanche showing up, meh, the reveal. Hogan would have just quickly kicked his ass, maybe even had a face off because of how fragile Beefcake's face was. But it just, and it sent Beefcake in a downward spiral of really bad characters, whether it was Zodiac, the Booty Man, the Disciple, like that he had just so lack of direction, but unfortunately was only kept around for Hogan. I was a fan of Beefcake in WWE or WWF, but how he was used in WCW, just horrible. Then of course HBK and Marty Jannetty having it on the barbershop once again with Beefcake, but yeah, just that how it played out, and the throw through the glass window, which was actually gimmicked, but it didn't break the way it was supposed to, because that was actually sugar glass, and it just broke in a way that it cut Marty open hard way. And I think Beefcake wasn't supposed to be there, but he came back to check on Marty because of the fact that he got cut open. And so that sort of added to it. And then Shawn ripped up the magazine with them, wondering if there was problems between them. And he says, I don't think so, because there's no longer them. It set Shawn definitely on a upward turn, as opposed to Beefcake's heel turn going nowhere fast. Is it sweep Chris Maloney?
No, actually it might be. Yeah, I'm kidding. Definite sweep. I had to Google the Beefcake thing because I had no idea what the heck it was. And all of a sudden I'm looking and I'm like, Kevin Sullivan, Dungeon of Doom, Halloween Havoc 94, I think it was. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that explains a lot. I kind of blocked out a lot of that stuff as far as wrestling goes, either WWE or WCW back in the day. But definitely right about the Booty Man, so to speak. His career was just never kind of the same after that car accident where he's supposed to beat Honky at SummerSlam 88. And then he ends up, 6 years later in WCW doing bad gimmick after bad gimmick after bad gimmick. And, I was a fan of the Dream Team, but that was probably, his best days. Even Brutus the Barber Beefcake, he was nothing more than a gimmick, So you put him in a feud like this with Hulk Hogan, and it's Halloween Havoc. You never know. Maybe the two could appear at NXT Halloween Havoc coming up, to kind of shake hands and bury the hatchet after 26 years or whatever it be. But never knew that fact about Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels about the glass there. It's one of those iconic moments. And I was talking earlier in the show about the top 5, that definitely stands up there. And anytime I see a tag team now, and all of a sudden they're starting to part ways, I always think to myself, who's going to be Jannetty and who's going to be Shawn Michaels, Kate's Strike Force, obviously Tito Santana was the Jannetty, and then, Rick Martel was the, obviously the Shawn Michaels. And then that was even before that. But I even see now, like the Street Profits on Raw, and I think to myself, okay, you know what? Angelo Dawkins is definitely going to be Jannetty, but, and it's Shawn Michaels. I don't know whose ear he was in. And this comes at a point in time the Rockers had been fired from WB, had left the AWA. And then Shawn, who does he pick up as his manager? And one of his first gimmicks post Rockers is Sensational Sherry, who is actually had been feuding with over in the AWA as far as that went. So there's some history, but yeah, hands down, Michaels and Jannetty. And like I said, it's always going to be tag teams once they go their separate ways. And Shawn Michaels ripping up that magazine at the very end was kind of cool as well. So yeah, 3-0.
Perfect. Our second last match in the first round has Triple H destroying HBK, and Christian turns his back on his brother. Triple H and Shawn Michaels were known as D-Generation X. Shawn obviously got injured when he hit his back on that casket at the Royal Rumble. He barely made it through, but he did show up for WrestleMania 14, dropped the title to Austin. There was a lot of speculation whether or not he was actually going to do it, because I guess even Undertaker was at the gorilla position ready to beat the piss out of Shawn had that not happened. Shawn ends up going into basically retirement. Excuse me. And he made his occasional appearances as the commissioner and stuff like that. Was on the first SmackDown, super kicking The Rock in a match that he reffed with Triple H. But it wasn't until the NWO was there and Hogan turned face. Nash had brought in Shawn to the NWO, the only member of the NWO who had never worked in WCW. But just with so many injuries, Nash tearing a quad again, go figure. The NWO thing died out really quickly. So then Shawn was on his own. He brought Triple H over to Raw and was hoping, they'll just be best friends again, reform DX. And on that first night, Triple H comes out and gives them the DX shirts. They go out to the ring. They're posing. They're doing everything DX, getting ready to give everybody 2 words. And just as they're about to crotch chop, Triple H kicks Shawn, pedigrees him, and basically that's a no. But then, oddly enough, the next week, Shawn Michaels gets attacked in the parking lot and thrown through a window of a car and is really beat up. Triple H is shown the following week with Eric Bischoff in the ring saying, "Oh, I'm going to find out who did this to you. I'm going to find out," and is like really showing concern, even though the week before he had destroyed their friendship by pedigreeing him. And then Shawn was able to finally make it back. They are still like, "Oh, I'm going to find out who did it." And Shawn's like, "I got video footage," and they clean it up. And next thing you know, it is Triple H who did it. So it actually took 2 attacks on Shawn, I guess, to make this heel turn happen. But Shawn then vowed to get back in the ring. We saw the street fight between Shawn and Triple H at SummerSlam 02, which was an amazing match. He was just going to do one last match with his best friend and see how it went. Well, it went so well that he decided to continue his career, picked up the world title off of Triple H at the first ever Elimination Chamber at Survivor Series, dropped it a month later to Triple H, but Shawn's career just kept on going in that case. But establishing Triple H as the heel that he was and was able to bring out so much of his best friend Shawn also set the tone for being the game, being the next dirtiest player in the game next to Triple H. And it's going against Christian, who turned on Edge. There were multiple time tag team champions. I think maybe 6 or 7 by the time they split up. There was the invasion angle happening, and Edge was turning face. Christian turned face with him. Edge ended up becoming the king of the ring, and he was carrying around this sort of Stanley Cup looking trophy with him to celebrate his acknowledgement as king of the ring, as opposed to wearing a crown and all that other kings have done. And Christian, you always saw, was getting jealous of that. And one day in Toronto, of all things, I believe I was at that show because it was back-to-back nights at the ACC. The second night, Christian turned on Edge in front of everybody and went on to feud with him. He got the Intercontinental title away from Edge. Tried for the European title, which I believe he got as well. Back and forth between the two, flipping the IC title. Unfortunately, after that, it sort of went downhill when they were split up and on different brands and whatever. But comparing the two and everything that happened, Triple H maintained being a top heel. He was a main eventer. Christian, unfortunately, was mid-card. I have to go with Triple H turning heel on HBK. Not sure if it's going to make it through, but Chris Maloney.
You know, it's funny because I was just talking about that whole Rockers effect and who's the Jannetty and who's the Michaels. And Edge obviously was the Shawn Michaels, Christian being the Jannetty. Christian obviously accomplished a little bit more than say Jannetty did. But I got to be biased. And the reason being because I was there that night in 2001 at the ACC. In the 100 levels, basically, if the stage, the ring entrance, whatever, I can't describe this on camera, but I'll never forget the sound of silence when Christian hit him with that chair and turned on him. And I forgot all about that trophy and the Stanley Cup looking thing. Kind of looks more like a Grey Cup than a Stanley Cup, but Christian was basically, Edge won the King of the Ring, and that was Christian's way of saying, hey, you know what, I get to be part of this too. I get to be part of this too. And then, but just being there that night, again, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, it's one of those things that I'd have to go back and look at all the videos and look at all the clips to remember. When you're talking about it, I remember. And, Shawn's lead up match to Elimination Chamber, winning the title. I think it was the World Heavyweight Championship that night. And then he ends up dropping it back to Triple H. But the history behind that, where Shawn Michaels' career went, basically takes everything he had done beforehand, and it's almost forgettable. I mean, WrestleMania 14 with that last match with Austin. But the fact is, when it comes down to it, as a hometown guy and being there that night, and Edge and Christian and on top of the world as they were, if Triple H and Shawn Michaels had won tag team championships, if they had been more of a cohesive unit other than just say DX with China, it'd be a different story. But Edge and Christian have been wrestling together since teenage years or whatever the case may be. So, and when you watch them break up after having those WrestleMania main event type matches, especially like I said, being there live, I had to go biased. So I got to go Edge and Christian. So Jonesy tiebreaker.
So then I have this question for the wrestling minds. So Triple H and HBK, and I forgot my train of thought. Crap. I was going to ask a question about that feud. So when HBK left and the next night Triple H came out and did, brought up the DX thing and all that happened, did they have a wrestling feud between then and this moment or no?
No, they hadn't. Triple H said that basically Shawn had left and he took over.
For me, this was like a storyline that built up for a long time, because it's like, okay, now Shawn Michaels is back, but what about what happened when he left and Triple H basically said, well, I don't need you no more and all this, it's kind of like, and then it finally pays off here. It's I think it was well done. For me, it's the Triple H one. The Christian Edge one, yes, it's a good turn, but it's not, to me, a substantial turn. There's a more history for me in the Triple H HBK one, because of the years that everyone knew they were friends, and then it dropped off. But it was like, someone just leaving the show, not saying, okay, they're definitely, we're not friends anymore. It took years until that happened. So, and the other thing I want to then mention is, no. Which one do you say is the Jannetty with Strike Force?
You asking me or Shawn?
Both of you.
Jannetty with Strike Force? Obviously Santana.
Yeah, go Santana, but I think they were both sort of Jannetty because they didn't do anything.
I would agree with they were both Jannetties, but if I had to pick one, I'd say it was Martel, because he really, yes, he got a better gimmick, but he didn't really win anything with it. where Tito, he actually already had tag belts and IC belts, so he really didn't need it.
But
And
he got
he had tons of main events and that he was in, like bigger matches throughout his career after the Force one, because he was on Hogan's team for Survivor Series. He was always one of the the good guys that he may win, he may lose, who cares? But we know we're going to get a good match out of him. To me, Tito is the Michaels out of those two.
Yeah, but Martel got the fight for Sherry's affection at SummerSlam against Michaels.
Though that was a great match.
Vote, Chris, Jonesy.
Mine was for Seth turning on the Shield. Mine was Triple H.
Okay. So our last matchup of the first round has Tommaso Ciampa turning on Johnny Gargano, taking on Stephanie betraying her daddy. Chris Maloney.
So backstory here is basically this was the I want to say the kind of the end of the road for the Vince McMahon character, so to speak. As far as everybody knew with regards to Austin and this and that, but McMahon had done and gone through another kind of side of things. And this, if I remember correctly, it was with regards to Test, right? This was the whole Test storyline that had started everything out with Test and Stephanie and kind of introducing her as a character on TV. And then next thing you know, they end up playing Vince McMahon because the fact is, they go and basically Triple H go through through Chapel. The whole kind of Stephanie's passed out, and Triple H mimics the fact that she agrees to get married, so they're married, and McMahon's all PO'd storyline wise, this and that, and the next thing you know, it's Armageddon. I think it was 1999, I believe it was, and Stephanie's still playing the innocent girl, and Triple H is kind of getting meaner and meaner. We're starting to see that game character, so to speak, and then. End of the match comes up, and Triple H's got a sledgehammer. Vince McMahon's lying in the ring, kind of all beat up and bloodied. And then Triple H goes to hit McMahon, I think, with the sledgehammer. Stephanie interferes, and the next thing you know, big smile comes across her face, and it's the fans realize that Triple H and Stephanie have been in kind of, on the same side the whole entire time to kind of screw over Vince McMahon at this point. The other side of things, there's a lot more history to it to me as a wrestling fan, because you've got everything going back to the Cruiserweight Classic, where all of a sudden they started to plant the seeds between the two. A great match, Cruiserweight Classic. They end up having huge successful tag team matches as DIY, winning the tag team championships. But then all of a sudden, and you're starting to see a kind of a certain look as far as these wrestlers go. You can't trust them. It's something to do with your eyes, like Sid, Jake the Snake, Tommaso Ciampa, just something about him. Johnny Gargano just way too innocent to be a bad guy. Now he's doing well right now, but if you put Ciampa right beside him, the Psycho Killer, there's no way in the world you can trust the guy. So all of a sudden, I think, what was it? They're going for the tag team championships, NXT Takeover. They end up falling short, from my knowledge, and then basically Ciampa ends up turning on Gargano, and that is the start of that. And Gargano basically takes an ass beating from Ciampa. Ciampa, we end up seeing, like I said, the more-esque Psycho Killer come out, the guy who's going to eventually become champion, the guy that we see now on NXT television, the Psycho guy. And so all of a sudden now we're left to see compassion for Johnny Gargano. It's interesting because it's such a generation gap between the two. And there's so much more history to Vince and Stephanie than, say, that one segment that happened at Armageddon. But as a fan of wrestling in 2020, I've got to go Gargano and Ciampa simply because of that. Because, again, I had to go back and look at notes as far as McMahon went, and Stephanie and Triple H. And, the biggest thing I remember is that whole big wedding scene, of going through the chapel, so to speak. But, I got to go Gargano and Ciampa because it's fresh on my mind. And DIY has had that chemistry to lead up to almost like a Mega Powers explosion, and Ciampa being the savage, so to speak. So, Ciampa Gargano is my pick.
Jonesy.
So Stephanie, You know what? I was never a fan of hers. She is pretty, but I always found her kind of annoying. Her voice just I'm not a huge fan of that. It did work though, but you said it as a fan of wrestling. To me, the Champa one, I didn't even follow that stuff, but I watched that match, and what a ladder match. And then after all of that, then it's a quick turn and it's done real fast. It's just really good, and to me, that's why I'm voting for that one, because that turn was quick, and after a great match, and then you get that on top. That's fantastic.
Well, it looks like it's going to be a clean sweep on that one because, yeah, for me, seeing that, I was a fan of Stephanie McMahon. I first saw her in the magazine in the catalog, showing off the Bulldog T-shirt and stuff like that. And then when she showed up, all innocent looking, with the whole storyline with Test and how it evolved and how things have gone for her over the years. Yeah, I was a Stephanie McMahon sort of fan at that point. There's been times I'm going, why? Please get off my TV with her and Triple H. But this whole thing with Gargano and Ciampa, knowing their history, as Chris Maloney said, with CWC, them teaming with DIY, being tag team champions, the great match that happened just leading up to that same night, you would not have known that there was any problem between Gargano and Ciampa, and people were celebrating them and thanking them for their match, even though they were in defeat. And I guess the sort of genius of this whole turn also came with the fact that they put that little thing at the bottom saying, the production of WWE, and you got the timestamp and all that, and you're like, oh, okay, we're going to fade to black, and then all of a sudden, bam, and you're like, whoa, what just happened here? And you see the beatdown of Gargano by Ciampa, and you're just like left like, did I just actually see that? Like, the show was over. Where does this come from? And what led to everything over time after that, and both of them have turned on each other so many times, but they were also, I believe Ciampa was his best man when Gargano married Candice LeRae. They just have a lot of history, and so that one is going to the next round.
You forgot about the Glorious Bombs.
Oh, yes.
Those were hilarious. Talk about the history. That's just off the wall kind of. Anyways, but yeah, Glorious Bomb. Google it.
Okay, so that brings us to the ending of the first round, where we ended up seeing Hulk Hogan as the third man, winning 3-0. He will now go against Kevin Owens, who beat Andre the Giant in a upset, I would say, 2-1. Orndorff lost to the Mega Powers Exploding. So Randy Savage will move on to round 2 to go against Sergeant Slaughter, who turned his back on his country in a 3-0 victory. The next matchup has Owen Hart taking on HBK. And Triple H will go against Tommaso Ciampa, because Triple H won 2-1 and Tommaso Ciampa won 3-0. So any surprises other than Andre not making it into the second round, guys?
I'm just taking a look here. Well, I mean, Beefcake butchering a friend kind of was upsetting. I mean, geez. But so yeah, it's interesting because you're the way the brackets have turned out. It's it's like you guys said on the show before. If it had worked out a different way, I could see others have advancing in this and that. But some were tough, but some not so much. So I'll tell you this: the next round, I got 3 of the 4 picked. I can't decide on one of them, so it's going to be one of them's going to be really tough.
Okay. That
You know,
leaves
if
us.
you've ever played gambling or blackjack or anything like that, and you get a player and they come up and they hit on like an 18 where they didn't need to, and you just took my card away, and then you realize the mistake, and well, I just lost $200. Thanks a lot. That's what the Andre the Giant thing was. You know, Maloney sat down at the table for one hand, got up and left, and like, what the hell happened? So, to me, it's severe injustice. That's what it is. It's just
I'll say
insane.
it's
That's
the
what makes it
legacy.
so fun.
To me, it's the legacy of Andre the Giant post WrestleMania 3. You know, you can think of what he had at Mania 3, but you think about Mania 4. You even think about that main event match that he had where DiBiase ended up with the championship.
Yeah, but
Andre didn't have, but he
this
didn't
was
have the
for WrestleMania 3. This was for 3. This is the pass the torch. After that, it was like, who gives a shit? But the actual setup and the execution, and then the Mania match.
Yeah, but the
And
setup.
Owens betrays Sammy. I mean, my God, I hope that better get past at least this round. Oh wait, no, it ain't, because it's up against NWO. Are you kidding me?
But
Let's
that
just
setup-
skip that one. We all
that's-
know that
with
friggin'
a-
Hogan's winning that.
Hey Jones, I'm gonna ask you a question. That's set
Yeah.
up for that one match, okay? That Hogan versus Andre, 93,000 people at WrestleMania 3, okay? That setup, that turn on, you know, Roddy Piper's Piper Pit was for WrestleMania 3, right? That one match. That's what fans are going to remember. Let me ask you this. How many Undertaker matches can you think of the top of your head without naming them? Probably at least 5 that are big money matches. Even though he was so undefeated at WrestleMania, the fact is that gimmick turn, that Jake the Snake Roberts thing where all of a sudden he turned face, which I know we haven't talked about here, has
Next
led
week.
so many Undertaker great matches at Mania as a face. And I wish I could say the same about Andre as a heel, but to me, it never. I mean, I think about him getting beat in 30 seconds by Ultimate Warrior or the Hacksaw Jim Duggan feud, and it's the legacy of that match for sure. But it's the feud after that Andre, because of health reasons, obviously, couldn't compete the way he should have been able to. So that was my reasoning behind it.
No, it wasn't.
So let's move on to round number 2. We have Hulk Hogan taking on Kevin Owens. Jonesy, you get to start this one.
Well, it's Hogan. And I say that mostly because the Owens betray Sammy. I seen that clip, and I've seen them both wrestle, but I really didn't follow all of that. Where, you know, the Hogan thing, I don't even have to watch the videos to remember a lot of it. So for me, it's the Hogan one.
Yeah, the Hogan turn is definitely going to be a hard one to beat. It's so memorable. I didn't have any notes when I ran it down at the start of the show. I was just so ingrained. I did watch it the other day when I was putting together the playlist, but I even skipped really through it, a lot of it, because I knew what was going on. People know what's going on with that one. KO and Sammy, wonderful feud, and it's probably going to keep on going. They even had a shirt that said "Fight Forever," I believe, with their splitting their faces. But yeah, in this case, Hulk Hogan definitely moving on to the semifinals. Chris Maloney.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3-0. It's going to be interesting to see if anything can beat Hogan in the NWO. So
I have an idea of one, depending on if it makes it through.
All right, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, it's
It
3-0.
sure ain't making it through.
Okay, so that was the 3-0 quick victory on that one. Moves us on to Randy Macho Man Savage against Sergeant Slaughter. Once again, Randy Savage, 18-month build, basically from the Mega Powers forming to the Mega Powers exploding. Dropped the title to Hogan at Mania 5, became King of the Ring, was heel all the way for the next 2 years. until WrestleMania 7, epic battle with Warrior and retiring. We'll talk about that one next week, the ending of that matchup. But yeah, that's basically 3.5 years of being a heel. Well, sorry, 2 years of being a heel with essentially 3.5 years sort of storyline from Mega Powers forming to the retirement. Going against Slaughter, he was in the right place, right time, I think. Being able to leave Vern Gagne behind at AWA and the political turmoil that happened in the world. I'm going Savage, though. Chris Maloney.
Yeah, I got to say the same thing. It's you think of the payoff from the match, you kind of predict that Hulk Hogan was going to win. It was that feel-good kind of American moment. But with regards to Hogan and Savage, it's the storyline all behind it, how it played out at Mania from 4 to 5, obviously, and then even leading into SummerSlam, where we get to see the appearance of Zeus. But anyways, yeah, I got to go Mega Powers exploding for the win there.
And Jonesy.
Well, the Mega Powers are going on, but for me, I changed which one I was going to go for because the Slaughter one, to me, had a better payoff. The Savage one was great, but for him then to lose the belt after all that, it was just, I didn't like it. I think Savage should have got a win over Hogan. The Slaughter one, all his interviews he did, as annoying as they were, how long they were, it was constant booing. It was like the loudest booing, I think. I'm sure there's other ones that are just as loud, but I'm like, he got a lot of booing heat, man. And those interviews, it was just solid booing. So for me, I'm going with Slaughter on that one. I like that one because he did such a great job of being a bad guy.
Okay, so a 2-1 victory there. I'm just changing the next banner. We have then Chris Maloney, Owen Hart versus Shawn Michaels.
So this was the toss-up. So I kind of left it right into this moment. And then when I looked at it, I just kind of went with gut. So I got to go here. I got to go HBK and Jannetty, simply for the fact that of the career that Shawn Michaels had post that. Owen had his big moments, but he never had the career, even comparison close to Shawn Michaels, you know what I mean? And obviously Owen passed away tragically, but the fact is, even when it comes down to it, you look at the characters that Owen had between that moment he turned on Bret Hart to all the way through to when Bret left for WCW. Jonesy had said the Blue Blazer gimmick is what ended up making him pass away. So the fact is, legacy-wise, longevity-wise, yeah, HBK.
Yeah, it's a hard one for me. I picked HBK, but I'm not making that official yet. Only because the Owen one did so much for Owen. I mean, yeah, the HBK did a lot for him, but I feel like that turn did so much more for Owen. I like the HBK one better. I've always wanted to do a little model of that whole set, but I don't know if I'll kick myself later, but I'm going with the Owen one. I'm putting my vote on the Owen one just because it really helped Owen so much. It really did. He turned into such a good bad guy, but because the goofiness that he was, it worked. And honestly, I don't think if that happened, Owen would have been missed as much because we wouldn't have seen that character come out. So for me, I got to go with it's a good turn. It worked, and it's Owen for me. You're the tiebreaker on that.
Well, if people saw my reaction when you started talking about HBK, I thought you were going to pick it. I was going Owen for sure because in the time frame that that happened, wrestling was down 93, 94, 95 area that Owen and Brett did their feud. Hogan had left. Brett is now your number one guy. Owen is feuding with him, brother versus brother, and you got an era where, as I said, wrestling was down, and these guys were the ones carrying it, essentially. HBK ended up surrounding himself with the right people. Click-wise, he became really tight with Vince. Sort of reminded Vince of himself, cockiness, but just everything that went on with Owen and the length of that story, just in itself, unfortunately got lost in the shuffle after Brett left and everything that tragically happened afterwards. But that heel turn of Owens, for me, I have to go with Owen. And that brings us to...
I just had my Andre WrestleMania 3 moment right there. Just the look of
you go.
disappointment.
Oh, please. What the Andre thing brought in compared to what beat it? Give me a break. And give me a break.
Jonesy, you
Yes.
get to go with some Triple H and Tommaso Ciampa.
I'll make this one quick. For me, it's the Triple H one. Again, I haven't watched a lot of the Ciampa Gargano stuff, but the Triple H HBK, the storyline, how long they were friends, all that stuff. I don't know. It just and again, it really launched Triple H's asshole character, and that one's the one for me.
Okay. Yeah, between these two, Triple H was already established as far as I'm concerned. Just a lot of things. He needed a lot of different people to help him. I am going to actually go with Tommaso Ciampa. So we'll see what Chris Maloney gives us.
So DIY. Ciampa turning on Gargano. I forgot about that. When you were mentioning that, Sean, with regards to being, prone to watching WWE pay-per-views and seeing that little logo pop up in the screen and, within like 5-10 seconds is done. And then Ciampa doing what he did, it was one of those holy crap moments, So yeah, I got to go Ciampa.
Okay. So a little bit of surprise there. So far, my brackets have not been destroyed. Thank you, guys. Sometimes my brackets get destroyed early. I know this week or other weeks, Jonesy has been able to survive a lot longer with how things go.
The music one, that one, it was easier to pick. These ones, I pick which ones I think are going to win based on as if I'm grading a place and what it meant and everything, and that's how I come up with my thing. Because you know what, the HBK one, I love. Just that clip is fantastic.
Iconic.
But the storyline of the Owen turns on Brett was just more, like, bigger.
So coming out of the second round, Hogan won 3-0 over Kevin Owens. Randy Macho Man Savage won 2-1 over Sergeant Slaughter. Owen Hart won 2-1 over Shawn Michaels. And Tommaso Ciampa beat Triple H with a score of 2-1, giving us our semifinals. Hogan against Randy Macho Man Savage and Owen Hart against Tommaso Ciampa. And I get to start round number 3 with Hulk Hogan against Randy Macho Man Savage. Now, Chris Maloney pointed out the fact that I'm not a Hulk Hogan fan and how much I am a Randy Macho Man Savage fan, but the impact that the Hogan turn did have on the business compared to the turn that Randy Savage had leading to WrestleMania 5 with the Mega Powers exploding, I feel is bigger, even though They are both iconic visuals to watch. People will remember the slap in the face, the finger right in Hogan's face, with Elizabeth watching on, pleading for him to stop. But the garbage getting thrown in the ring, Kevin Nash getting hit off the head with a full Coke, while Hogan's telling people to shut up, and Bobby Heenan calling it unknowingly, I guess, if you believe that. It just led to so much more. So Hulk Hogan is going to beat Randy Savage in this occasion. Chris Maloney.
And the NWO going to the finals. So, yeah, I'm going to go NWO. I'm going to go Hogan with that whole big, like you said, significant turn in wrestling history that almost put WWE out of business. So, yeah, I'm going to go NWO.
Jonesy?
This one, to me, is equal. Even though the Hogan one is supposed to be the bigger one, if I had to vote and I was a tiebreaker, I was probably going to go with Mega Powers, and that's the one I'll go with, just because, again, I remember watching that live, and that it was just done so well, and so many great clips out of that they've used over the years.
Falling through the ropes.
Sorry?
Including Akeem falling through the ropes. You catch that in the clip,
and that's the bonus part.
Playlist. That both Twin Towers bouncing off the ropes, and as Bossman was going for Savage, Akeem fell through the ropes, and Savage made his comeback.
He sure did, and in fact, I think Hogan was supposed to maybe knock him off or something, because it seemed like Hogan needed something to do, but because he kind of eliminated himself.
Yeah. Okay, so 2-1 victory for the NWO formation officially, with Hogan being the third man, not Mabel, as some people would think was the suspected thing, Dave Meltzer, or it was not Sting, who was asked as well. And that brings us to our other semifinal match, Owen Hart versus Tommaso Ciampa.
So just for the record, I can't say anything negative about Dave Meltzer at this point, so I'll keep it at that. But I'll say this, when it comes down to it, I can't vote HBK Jannetty over the Harts. Vote Ciampa and Gargano, and then go and change my mind on this. So I've got to go Ciampa and Gargano to the finals.
Well, Sean, you get to tie break this one, because for me, it's the Owen Hart one.
Yeah, for me, it was Owen as well. I had a conversation, as I said, with Nathan earlier today, and we were trying to just talk it out, and that, and yeah, I gotta go with Owen because of the history that it did do. So that is going to be our finals, and we'll just make one last peek at what happened on the ticker. The bracket. Hulk Hogan, being the third guy, won 2-1 over the Mega Powers Exploding, and Owen Hart beat Tommaso Ciampa 2-1 to make it to the finals, which is Hulk Hogan taking on Owen Hart. Are you guys surprised by this at all with how it played out? Would you have predicted this from the start? Chris Maloney?
Hell no. I guarantee no. I guarantee Jones is going to say no too, but mine was later on.
What were your final two?
My final two, when it can't come right down to it, I'd have to. I'd probably say NWO for sure, which which is in there. But there is some bias down at the lower card. I mean, when you look at, say, for example, Christian and Edge, and then obviously the one that got beat out that I'm not too happy about, and that's HBK and Jannetty. That would right there would have probably final two for me. So HBK, Jannetty, and then the NWO. But obviously not happening. Not even Ciampa Gargano happening. Freaking the Hearts. Biased.
Jonesy. What are your thoughts?
Well, Actually, that's what my parents were going to call me if I was a girl. Um, yeah, I'm still distraught over Andre. So I would have lost a lot of money,
Andre would
man, if I bet on this.
unless Andre beat Hogan as the third man, Andre wasn't going to make it too much further. So, what were your
Which is
final two?
ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. A guy who had the career that Andre did, a good guy, and he turns bad on Almighty Hogan, and you have, anyways. I've lost. It'd be easier if it was like being a Blue Jays fan where you just accept the fact that they suck and you move on. So.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to our final matchup.
Okay, that's kind of like being a Raiders fan for football, isn't it?
You get your hopes up, and then you get crushed, and then you get back into the saddle. It's a revolving door. I get that. They're now 2-2. Anyways, final matchup: Hulk Hogan versus Owen Hart. Jonesy, you get to start this off.
It is a hard one. Because I'd like to go with the Owen one, but the NWO one, I still think maybe the Owen Hart one is better crafted, and because it's basing off of real life, real feelings, and all that. But because it was in WCW, it was one of the better things they did. It's kind of like you wish John Cena would have fucking turned bad, but he didn't do it. And maybe he will still. Maybe he'll come back and do a bad run. I hope. But yeah, for me, it's the Hogan one. And it really did a lot for WCW and the longevity of Hogan's career. It was like, he was on his last down and all that. And I'm going to be knocked off the pedal so soon. And then doink. So for me, Hogan, that one just, it's almost unbeatable, except for maybe Andre. But that's a story.
Let it go. So it looks like Chris Maloney is going to be our tiebreaker because once again, my conversation with Nathan Hill earlier this morning at work, comparing the two, and it's just like who could beat Hulk Hogan being the third man. And looking at the lower side of the bracket, the only one that did actually stand out was Owen Hart's turn. We talked about it being the shadow of Bret Hart, being victim of circumstances to Jerry the King Lawler in that feud, being the lone Hart eliminated at WrestleMania. Survivor Series. The animosity at Christmas time, getting back together, going for the tag titles, kicking the leg out, challenging each other at WrestleMania, being the best match on that card to start things off. The King of the Ring for Owen Hart, the cage match, the pleading with Mom to protect Bret, and everything that happened up till their reunion. Owen was a great heel in that regards. Hulk Hogan turned heel and was one of the biggest moments in WCW history. It helped turn the tide. It was a big proponent with those 83 weeks that WCW did defeat WWE. But NWO got too big and people got lost in the shuffle. Yes, Hogan was there as the main leader, but then it got split off and you had Nash as a leader, Hogan as leader, going against each other. Hogan needed to separate himself, but still wear the colors and bring a different theme. Had they stayed a smaller unit and dominated WCW like they probably should have, I would have been giving Hogan my vote. But I think it got watered down too much. The main event scene was shit when they got between the bells. If they were doing their promos, people tuned in for that. But people laughed at their matches. You had really shitty matches with Ultimate Warrior and The Giant and Nash, Piper, Ric Flair, all these horrible things, even after Hogan had turned heel. Owen Hart had a great run, character-wise, family-wise, storyline, everything was there. That's why I'm saying Owen Hart beats Hulk Hogan in this finals. Now, Chris Maloney.
Till the end, because Owen went back to the Blue Blazer, man. He didn't have a good end.
But Brett was gone. And they
but that's still part of the whole storyline. So he fell apart as much as NWO did.
Well, we'll see. Chris Maloney, what is your pick?
You guys hear that okay?
Yeah.
The look of disappointment on Sean's face that he heard it just fine.
Well, he was ready with either one. I think he knew which one was coming.
I tell you this. So I tell you with regards to Owen and Brett, it was amazing to watch, but it was the legacy of where Owen's career went. With the NWO, without it, wrestling wouldn't be the same. And there's still people. I mean, we think about what NWO was in 96, I believe. And people still talk about it like it was yesterday, 24 years later. So, yeah, got to go NWO. So, as much as I'm not necessarily a Hulkamaniac, I don't hate him like Shawn does, but I'm not necessarily a Hulkamaniac. I was always an Ultimate Warrior guy. I've got to go NWO for the win.
Oh, no wonder you friggin' didn't pick Andre. You like the Warrior.
There you go. So, this concludes this week's edition of the Fantasy Warfare Tournament. I believe Chris Maloney will be joining us next week when we talk about the greatest face turns. Here's a quick video on that, and we'll let you know what to expect. So there you go. Next week will be the greatest face turns. Things like CM Punk taking his pipe bomb against thumbs up, thumbs down to Randy Orton. Savage and Elizabeth reuniting, going against Virgil is a Man. Lex Luger's Patriotic Slam against Undertaker saving Elizabeth. The Mega Powers forming against Jake Roberts taking a guitar shot. Bossman Can't Be Bought going against Austin not giving up. And so many more. We talked about some of them, hinted at them in this episode. Guys, your thoughts on next week before we take off?
VIRGIL.
What the hell is that?
That's how you spell man.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that.
There was also all those tears at what was it, WrestleMania 7. I mean, it wasn't Savage had to take the friggin' all the praise away from the Warrior for beating them, and then next thing you know, they friggin' reunited. So that's
her shoes were too tight.
Who?
The woman on the floor.
Oh, jeez.
Didn't you hear Bobby Heenan?
That is one of the most. I'm gonna find that image in crystal clarity, so you can use as a backdrop maybe for next week of that one lady with all that blonde hair. It's a classic. It's like you talk about CM Punk's pipe bomb. That image right there is just as classic as the pipe bomb. And I guarantee when you guys, Sean, I think you know what I'm talking about, but Jones, some lady with typical early 90s, late 80s hair, face is all kind of, who is that? Tammy. Oh, I can't think of her name right now, but there's some girl, a lady.
Baker.
Yes, that lady, that type of makeup going on, and she'd crying her eyes out. And Shawn apparently had backstage.
Oh yes, I remember now.
Because they kept cutting to the crowd looking for shots, and that was one of them. But
Blue
yeah,
dress with polka dots.
take that out. Take out the Savage Liz reunite, and simply put that lady in there, and then see if she makes it all the way through to CM Punk's pipe bomb. That'd be classic.
There we
that's
go.
a lady I would really like to get a signed autograph from.
It's like the Miz girl. You guys know who I'm referring to?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. And Maloney, you have some mother watching to do, so we'll see you then. Have a good night.
It's going to be interesting. So yeah, thanks for having me though.
Yep. See ya.
Cool.